Okay, so this is Digital Say. I believe Ms. Jennifer will have explained who we are to everyone that have joined this evening. Today or this evening, I will be your tutor, just like she has already introduced me. We are looking at programming generally, looking at how to program with 3 different languages, starting with the language for, and all these languages we'll be looking at, they are web-based languages. They are languages, they are programming languages that are used for developing front end of a website. So, but before we dive into that aspect, I would like to give us general introduction to what programming is all about. Whether you are an app programmer or web programmer, you are a programmer. There are basic things you need to know, because I understand that some of us that are here have not attempted programming before now. So the key program that we actually advertise is JavaScript, but according to the order of web programming, you need to have at least 30 to 40% background knowledge of HTML and CSS, particularly HTML, before you can actually apply JavaScript successfully. And that is the reason why I choose to start with the general introduction to programming. So the first thing we want to look at is what is code, because programming is also referred to as coding. So, but we may not understand what is coding without understanding what is code. Code is a set of instructions that a computer can understand and execute. What it simply means is that you give a command to the computer, and then the computer responds to that command. A programmer is someone, or is a professional who knows how to program instructions on the computer to perform certain tasks. It is written in one or more programming languages. Now we need to understand that in programming, just like the language we all speak, some of us speak Hausa, some of us speak Yoruba, some of us speak different languages. So when we say programming languages, which means that there are different languages that can be used to program on the computer. In other words, there are different languages that can be used to instruct the computer to perform a particular task. That is why computer is defined as goal-oriented object. Goal-oriented object, which means that for every instruction that is given to the computer, there is a target. There is a target. And when that target is not achieved, then it becomes an error. So we should bear it in mind that we have different computer programming languages. So when you are addressed as a programmer, it's probably because you are familiar with one of these languages. Now, let's quickly look at types of coding now that we have an understanding of what coding is all about. Now, on that type of coding, the reason why I decided to highlight these types of coding is for you to know of what benefits as a programmer, or if I eventually enroll for the master class, how can I actually apply my programming skills? There are different areas you can actually exhibit your coding skills. And the first one is the front-end development, which is also called the client side. Now, I try as much as possible to give us hints on what these special terms represent. When we say client side, we are taking into consideration the two different interfaces of a website. There is an aspect or an interface of a website that is referred to as the user's end. Now, who are the users? The users are the people who visit your site. The users are the visitor. So which means we are saying that if you are a programmer, you can actually create user interface that that will end up offering the user what we call the US, which is called the user experience. The user experience. Now, the front end development is the user end, like I just explained. Which other aspect I can apply my programming skill as a programmer? I can also apply my programming skill at the back end development or on the back end development. Now, what is back end development? Like I've established, every website that you see today, or let's say 95% website, has two different interfaces. The first one, the one you see whenever you type in on the browser address location by www. For example, digitz.com.ng. The interface the browser takes you to, it is what we are calling the front end. Now, I believe every one of us that have joined tonight must have filled a form on a website, on a web page. Now, when you enter or when you fill the form, when you enter your input, which means your data, for example, that form is just like a questionnaire that the programmer, which is me or you as a programmer, must have programmed to collect the user input on your behalf. Now, the question is, those information that the user input on the form input, by the time the user hits the submit button, where will they go to? So that particular section where those data will be deposited, it is what we are calling the back end. So the back end is simply the administrative section of the website. In other words, a section that administers the front end. Is the admin section of a website, which is very, very sensitive. You don't have direct access to the back end of a website, but you have direct access to the front end of the website. Just for clarity purpose, the front end is your sitting room, while the back end is your bedroom. Nobody visits you and just walks straight to the bedroom without your permission. So using that scenario, I believe you now understand the difference between the front end and the back end of a website. So a developer or a programmer who develop the back end is called a back end developer. A developer or a programmer that creates the user interface is called the front end developer. Now we have number 3, which talks about full stack development. Full stack development. So full stack development is like the combination of both the front end and
Yes,
the back
if you want
end.
to, they're teaching free coding.
Free coding
and forex.
and forex.
They are starting just now.
Please, the coordinator.
Want to take
Please.
I put one
Once,
not navigate to go to this place.
sorry for that.
Types of coding.
Let me see.
With what is coding. Come and do it and send the link to yourself. If you want to listen to it now.
Please, good evening, ma'am. Please kindly mute your video and mic, please. So that you will not distract the class.
Yes.
Please mute your mic and your video. Thank you. To avoid distraction.
All right, thank you very much. All right, so please, okay, so I was talking about the full stack development. Like I said, the full stack development is simply the combination of the front end and the back end. So who is a full stack developer? A full stack developer is someone who understands, who can code with the front end languages and the back end languages, which means what? All. So you stand to absorb more opportunities compared to just front end developer. Now we have game developer. These are people who create game for personal computer, console, and mobile devices. Then we have the web development, building of websites and web application, like we are going to learn today. So if you have someone out there that you know that the person should be here, I can assure you, send the link to such a person and invite the person to join right away. Now we have the artificial intelligence, which we call the AI and the machine learning development, creating intelligent systems. The data analytics that we all hear about today is totally leveraging on the AI tools that are available today, like Python and R programming and other AI related programs. So with these types of coding that I've explained so far, that is enough for you to know that as a programmer, or when you learn programming, you really have space in the tech world. Now, let's quickly look at types of programming. Types of programming. So now, we have different types of programming so that you know where you will end up eventually involved in. We have web development, like the intro I've given. That is enough for you to understand what web development is all about. Now, under web development, there are certain languages you must learn. There are certain programming languages you must learn if you want to be a web developer, either front-end developer or back-end developer. So for the front-end development, you need a language of hypertext markup language, which is the HTML. You need to know how to speak that language as one of the computer subordinate language for web development. Now, you need to also understand what we call the cascade style sheets, which is abbreviated to CSS. You need to also understand the language that gives life, that gives effects, that makes a website to be interactive, which is called JavaScript. Now, if you stay till the end, I am going to touch HTML, touch CSS, and also touch JavaScript tonight. So make sure that you stay to the end. Now, PHP, which is called Peripheral Hyper Preprocessor, it's actually a server-side language, which is also known as the back-end language for either website scripting, for handling of data. For example, when you fill a form in a web page, the moment you hit the submit button, then that submit button is already tied with PHP scripts that will handle, that will process whatever the user must have imputed in those text boxes and pipe them to another section called the database. And that database, that is where you must have developed with a language called SQL, which means structured query language. We have Ruby, we have Python. Now, if you are going to use Python for website development, you are going to leverage on its framework, which is called the Django. So you cannot use raw Python for back-end development of a website. You are going to use a framework created by Python, which I just mentioned now as what? The Django. Now, mobile app development. Now, under mobile app, remember we are still talking about type of programming languages that you need to learn if you want to become either web programmer or application programmer. We have mobile app development, which comprises of Java, Swift, Kotlin, and React Native. Now we have game development. Under game development, you have C++. Java, you can see Java is now playing double role. In other words, Java is applied in app development, mobile app development, and it is also applied in game development. Even in web development, the back end, there are some developer that uses Java, leveraging on what we call or it library rather. Then you can, under game development, we also have Python. So you can see Python almost everywhere. Then you have the AI and the machine learning development, Python and R, and then Julia, and then TensorFlow. Now that will now take us to, now we've highlighted so far different types of programming language. So you have to find your space. You have to learn one of these programming languages. Now, we will now look at what are the benefits of being a programmer, or what are the benefits of learning programming. So quickly, permit me to just get the slide out just for a few minutes. Okay. Okay, so one of the benefits of being a programmer is that you are a problem solver, which means that every programmer is a critical thinker. I have not come across any programmer that is not problem solver. So that is one of the benefits of learning programming. Now, it is good for you to expose your children once they are up to 18 years or 14 years to programming basic, so that they can develop their thinking capacity. That is one of the benefits of programming. Now that we have established the foundation, the next stage we want to look at now is what we call programming IDE. Programming IDE. So what do we mean by programming IDE? So programming IDE, they are actually applications that are customized for all programmers in order to aid them in coding. Whether you are speaking Python, whether you are speaking JavaScript or Java or any of those languages that I just explained, you need an IDE. So an IDE is just like an editor that allows you to write your code. Just like whenever you want to type a letter, you need a software called Microsoft Word to help you type that letter. So the same thing to programmers. Whenever we want to program, we need an application to be installed in our system to help us write our code. So a programming integrated development environment, that is the full meaning of IDE, integrated development environment. That is an environment that helps you to develop. So it's a software that provides tools for writing, debugging, and testing of code, like I just explained. So we are going to use one of the commonly used IDE tonight. So let's quickly look at the popular programming IDE. So if you are going to program with any of those languages that I have explained, then you need to install one of these. Now, I try to separate them because I have already talked about web programming and application programming. So if you are a web developer, you need one of these IDE to be installed. You need one of these applications to be installed in your system. You need the Visual Studio Code, you need the Sublime Text, you need the Atom, you need the brackets, you need the web stuff. Now, but among these ones under web development, the most effective one and the most used IDE is Visual Studio Code. And one of the reasons is that Visual Studio Code is very light. It's lighter than other ones. When you install some of this IDE on your system, particularly if your system memory is not high, it can slow down your system. So one of the reasons why most programmers uses Visual Studio Code because of its efficiency. Now, under mobile app, if you are going to be a mobile app developer, you need an Android Studio. And under Android Studio, you can use it to write Java, you can use it to write Kotlin. You need the Xcode for writing Swift. You know, I have mentioned some of these programs, React Native. I've talked about them before. So that is for the IDE. Now, we are going to start right away with the first language, which is the basis of all the programming language. Whether you want to learn any of these core programming languages, you need to start from understanding the language that defines the structure of the website. Or let me generalize it. The language that creates content. That is called the HTML. So how do I start with the HTML? So the first thing I'm going to do is for me to access my IDE, like I just explained now. So my IDE in this case is the Visual Studio Code, which I've told us that we are using tonight. So I've already installed my IDE. So this is my IDE, Visual Studio Code. Now, the next step, how do I run it? The first thing you need to do is to create your project folder. Your project folder is the folder that contains all your resources, all the information that will be used while developing the website are to be stored in that folder.
This is not so people are so funny. Yeah,
so they are to be stored in that folder. Now, to start with, I'll simply create, sorry, just
can't be doing this.
To start with, I'll simply create the folder by right-clicking on an empty space and then navigate to folder and then click on it. So I can just name that folder example. I can just name it example. Now, There are other resources like images that I may need while developing the user end of my website. So those pictures, I would like to assemble them in a separate folder for easier assessment. So to do that, you simply open the root folder that you just created and then right-click inside it and create another folder. Name that folder according to the purpose. Now that folder will be used to hold all my images. So I just abbreviated my images to what? IMG. Now, I also understand that when developing or when building user end or user interface, I need to give my user a good experience. I would like them to enjoy my website interface. So for that reason, I am going to be consulting a presentation language, which is CSS. So I would like the code for styling my user content to be separated from the code for creating the content. So what I will simply do is to create another folder. Remember, we are still inside our root folder, which we name example. I will name this folder CSS. Now, because we are going to also work with JavaScript, which is the action language, or to add some interactivity to our website front end. So I would like the code that will be written with JavaScript to also be separated from CSS code and HTML code. So for that reason, I will create another folder and I will name that folder JS. So once I'm done with this, I will just quickly go to a browser and get some images inside the image folder. So part of the images I'm going to get, let me just get, let's say IT, or let's just say tech. So once I click, it's going to bring out what? Different what? Images. But what I actually want is a tech background. Let me just pick tech background. So and that will give me what? Technology what? Background. Now let's assume that I would like to style the whole of my website page with this background. So I will right click on it, or you can just simply go to image instead of all, so that you can have elaborate version of the images. So all I need to do, how do I download this picture into that IMG folder that I just created? I will simply right click on any of these images I want to download, then navigate to save image as, and that will open your system storage dialog box. So which means that from this dialog box where you have multiple options, you are to specify where exactly or the location where you want to store that picture. Now remember that our folder IMG is inside example, which is on my desktop. So I'll first of all locate the main storage by selecting desktop, and then I will go in here, and then I will come in here and then give my image a name. Let's say what? Web background to web BG, and then I click on save. So I would like to have some human being pictures, which might be useful, or maybe some product pictures that I'm going to use. Now let's assume that this website I'm about to develop is about sales of cars. So I need to also get some car picture where the user could not provide. So I will just type car and then hit my enter and then click on what? Images. And then of course you see beautiful car. Now you need to consider the color you intend to use so that you can choose some of these images that their colors are not editable. So for example, if the favorite color of this company that I'm about to build this website for is red, so it will be totally wrong as a UI designer to choose this color, to choose this car. I can't choose this car no matter how beautiful it is, because it's against the favorite color of my design. So I will select this and also save it in that folder. Because we just visited that directory, you can see that what the step, the URL is directly inside the last use directory. So I'll name this car1. Why are we doing this, sir? You need to gather the information you want to use to build the website. Just like the way we have this, the engineers, the architecturals that build physical structure. We build what? Virtual structure as developer. So the same way they will first of all consult an AutoCAD or a draftman to draft the floor plan and show all the elevations before proceeding to the site. So what I'm doing right now as a developer is to gather all the information that will be needed in the course of my development. Now, I will also need human being picture. So let me just get at least people picture. So now in this case, let me just say people here, and then go to image section and then pick any of this. So let me just pick, let me pick an image that also have red color, at least just to complement the color set I have planned for this website. Now, after this, so let's say what? P1. Then I click save. So ladies and gentlemen, at this point, I assume that I have gathered enough resources that will be needed for this website development. So now the moment you have gathered those information is for me to install this folder inside my IDE, because I'll be developing, I'll be coding inside this environment, inside this IDE. So it will be wrong, it will be unprofessional for you to be looking for the resources outside it. So that is the reason why I want to quickly install this inside my Visual Studio Code. How do I do that? Quickly. To do that, just double click on the IDE and then allow it to open. Just a minute. So I'm waiting for my IDE to open. Okay, so here I have my IDE. So this speak those three languages that I talked about. This is where I'm going to speak HTML. This is where I'm going to speak CSS. This is where I'm going to speak JavaScript. Now, like I said, the first thing I'm going to do is to choose my theme. What is theme as far as this IDE is concerned? The kind of environment you want to work with. Now, because I am coming in for the first time on this system, and that is why I am prompted all this as this level. Now, supposing you don't have access to this, just simply click on this icon, which says what? Setting. So once you click on it, you navigate to themes. From theme, you select what? Theme color. Now, part of what they capture here is what you can access here. So let me choose a dark working environment. Let me choose, let's say what? This. And then, which is this one now. So you can see the kind of environment. I've just switched from the default light space or working environment to dark working environment. So let me quickly switch to that white. And then by the time I've installed my folder, then if I ask you and you are not saying my code very well, I can switch to any other theme. So let's go back again. You go to theme, you select color theme, and then let's go back to light, which was programmed as default. So let's use this. Now, the next step is for me to install my folder. So kindly go to File and select Open Folder. So once you click on Open Folder, then it prompts you your computer storage dialog box. From here, you make a choice. Where is your root folder? Remember, we created example in desktop. So just select desktop, and then you can see your example as your root folder.
all you need to do is not to open it, just tap it, and then make sure that the name is showing here, and click on what? Select folder. Automatically, you see what will happen. Good. So I have in my editor. So which means that from here, I can access those pictures. If I've created any file inside my CSS, I can also access it. If I have also created any file inside my JS, I can also access it. So what you have right now is called your file structure. Your file structure, which is very important you take notice of it. Because understanding your file structure helps you to know how to locate items within your root folder easily. Now, I want to draw our attention to the icon attached to this element. So this is our main directory, then which means that I'm interpreting this file structure now. So this is our main container or main directory. Inside this directory, you have three components or elements that are directly inside it, which are the CSS, the image, and what? The JS. Now, you can expand any directory, and you can also what? Collapse it. So now, if I expand any of them and I see no content, it means that what? You don't have any information there. All right. So I want to confirm if you are following. If you are following, use the message section and type Mr. P, I am following before I proceed. I just want to get a response from 2 or 3 people before I proceed, just to know if you are following before we go to the next aspect. Quickly, I'm going there right now to check your comments. Okay, so I'm still expecting. Just kindly type, use the comment section and say, Mr. P, I am following. So I'm waiting for any comments. Once I get comment from 2 or 3 people, I can proceed quickly. Please, coordinator, please coordinate them, please. I need a comment. I want to get a feedback to know if you are following.
Yes, they have commented. I think you're the one not seeing it. About 4 persons.
Okay.
Has said we are
Okay. So
following.
good. Thank you very much. I am following Mr. P. I am following Mr. P. I'm
Yes.
following Mr. P. I am following, sir. Thank you very much. All right. So let's quickly go back there. Okay, so like I was saying, the next thing I want to teach us right now is how do I create my HTML file. So what is HTML? HTML is a markup language which is used in creating content or creating the user interface of almost every website you see. There is HTML code. So for example, if I want to publish an image in my web page, I need a language for adding that image as a content. If I want to publish about Digital Z Hub, I need a language for creating that content. If I want to publish a video, I need HTML as a language for publishing that as a content. So how do I start with the HTML? Now, then the first thing you need to do is to make sure that you understand where you are currently in. Between these 4 elements, how do I know where I am at the moment? This arrow that is facing down shows that you are currently inside example. And please, because at the end of your local development, there is what we call hosting, which means that once you are done, once you have perfected the website locally within your laptop, you publish it online. Now we are capturing that event or that particular aspect. So with that in mind, I am careful the way I structure my file. Your HTML file, once someone's login or type on a browser, www.digitz.com.ng, the very first page the browser drives them to, it is called the landing page, which is usually created as index.html, or if you are using PHP technology, it will be index.php. All right. So now, once you type in the website URL, the first thing the browser looks for is that file. Now, if you save that file inside any folder, inside this main folder, it means the browser will find it difficult to locate it. And that is the reason why your HTML file should not be inside any other folder other than what? The example, which is the first folder. So how do I know that I'm in the first folder? Like I said, using this arrow. Just click here. You will see this frame selection. Now, and navigate to this icon, which means what? New file. So once you click on it, it will open a text box ready to receive your file name. And the file name, like I just said, is called index.html. So whatever that comes after the dot in programming is called period. And it is used to introduce the technology you are using. It is used to introduce the language you are using. So what it means is that I am using HTML as a technology or as the language. And the moment I type that HTML, I want us to observe what came out. You can see this angle bracket, the opening angle bracket and the closing angle bracket, which simply inform you and I that this language is a markup. The markup, which means that what? A language that defines the structure of your website. How is it going to define the structure? It's going to define the structure based on the content arrangements, the way you arrange your image, the way you arrange your article or text form the structure or the shape of your website. Now, and the HTML as a language uses what we call the tags, T-A-G, tags. So these tags are the building blocks. These are the building blocks that the HTML uses to create the content or to tell the browser which is going to be our local testing technology on how to present those content to the users. So a simple example is just like I said, just like we have the architectural that build physical structure, we are also builder, but we build virtual structure. You know, when an architectural or when a builder want to build a physical structure, what they do is to start molding blocks. Those blocks that they are molding will be used to define the structure of the building. So the same way we operate here, so the HTML provide all the blocks. So the blocks which the HTML uses in this case to define the structure of your website, they are called the tags. They are called the tags. So now that we have created the file is empty. So let me change my theme color. Maybe that will enable us to see our content better. So I go to theme, like I showed up before. So I will select, let me go back to that default, this, good. I think this is better. Now, the moment you create that HTML file, Then you have your file here. Now, this file that we got by default has no content. So the next thing I'm going to do, because I am using a professional editor, which is the Visual Studio Code, there is already HTML simple file structure that has been created and saved in this IDE library. So all I need to do right now as a developer is to call out that HTML simple file. Then I can now continue to expand it. How do I call it out? So to call it out is very simple. So I'm going to show us 3 different ways you can actually call out that HTML default file. So you either type HT, just by typing HT, it brings out this from the library. So I will select HTML5 because HTML5 is the highest and the latest HTML version. So once I click on it, you see I now have access to the simple HTML5 structure. So what I just did right now is that instead of me manually typing all this code, I just invoke them from the library, from the IDE library, by simply typing that HT. Another way you can actually call out this, let's Ctrl Z to take it off. If I don't want to use that method, just type DOC, which means what? Document. Now, which document you are about to exploit is HTML document. How do I know that it's HTML document? Because I have already saved the file with what? HTML extension. So I will just click on it, and then I have access to that. So the next thing I want to show us now is how do we see the front end? Because the users have no business with this environment that we are. This is simply your development environment. This is where, as a programmer, you are writing your code. This is your back end. This is not the user's end. So you need to have a way of checking how is it going to be presented to the users you are developing this website for. And to do that, there is a technology or an extension that you need to install to help you to continually updating, even as you continue your development, the browser. As you add more content, it will be what? Acknowledging them automatically. But the first thing I need to do is to program my IDE to be saving whatever I am writing automatically. You can see this icon showing white here, which means that what the IDE is telling you and I is that this file have not been saved. And if this file have not been saved, it means the browser, which is a kind of a web application that helps us to check or to show, to preview the user end, will not be able to capture whatever content you must have developed. So how do I program it to be saving for me automatically? I'll simply go to File and then select what? Save automatically. So the moment I hit that save, check what happened. We can no longer find that icon. So now, like I was saying, you need to program an extension. So you simply click here if the extension has not been installed. But in this case, I have already installed my extension, which is called the Live Saver. So what this Live Saver will do is to help me to be running my code on the browser, because the user will access this website with that browser. So as I am developing, I need to be checking with the browser. So since if I have not installed it, just type Live Server. So once you type Live Server, it will bring out different extensions. Then you just hit the install button. But as you can see, this is no longer showing us install because I have already installed. Now let me go back to my document quickly and test and run this website. Now I will just simply right click here and select Open with Live Server, which is that technology or that extension that you have installed. So the moment I click here, now you watch what will happen. Now it will automatically open this on a browser and show me how this website. So let's click here. Let me just see. I think I have some. Okay, so you can see now you are seeing document. Why you are seeing document, it is because from the HTML document you inherited, you can see the document here. You can see the document here. So now if I don't want the user, whenever they get to my web page, to be seeing this document, I want them to see more descriptive information that will give them, that will help them to know whether they are in your website or not. For example, I want them to see welcome to Digital Z instead of seeing document. So I will simply go back to this document and delete what I have within the tag. So everything you have inside the angle bracket, they are called the building block. So those are actually what I was describing as the tag, which are the building block HTML uses in publishing content or creating this content for the users. So I will simply type my own welcome to DG Tech Z Hub. Now, because I've already programmed my autosave, I don't need to bother with what? Saving. Now, let me go back to the browser. The moment I return back to the browser, you can now see what? Welcome to Digital Z. Why? How did it update automatically? Because of that live server extension. So that live server is what is actually what? Updating my content. As soon as I add a content, it will refresh my browser. Now, but nothing is showing here. Nothing is showing here. Because this is the browser body. Why are we having nothing showing here? Because if you look at your HTML, within this body section, you have not written any code. You have not created any content. So anything that you would like to display to your users within the browser body, because this is the browser title, you have to code it inside the body tag. So right now, like I told us, anytime you want to code any elements or any content, anytime you want to publish any content, you look for the corresponding tag that is designed for that content programming. For example, I want to program on this page, welcome to Digital Z. I want them to be seeing the Digital Z right here, not at the top of the browser. So the next question I ask myself, which of the HTML building block can be used to achieve that? Now, there are tags called heading tags, which ranges from H1 to H6. So I could just use one of them to publish about Digital Z. So how do I do that? I will just press H1. Because I am using a professional browser, all these are already programmed inside the program. So that is why I could just type H1 and then to just call it out. Once I click on it, then it brings out what? The opening tag and the what? The closing tag. Now, we need to understand the tag syntax. So I'll simply use comments to explain. So what I am talking about now is what? HTML what? Tag syntax. So what is syntax in programming? Syntax is nothing but set of rules that governs writing that program. For example, now this is a tag. What is a syntax? A tag has, or most of the HTML tag has 3 sections that forms the tag: the opening section and then the closing section. So every
someone participating. Okay, our choice. I think it was network issues. Please kindly mute your video. Kindly mute your video. We can see what you are doing now.
All right. Please, let's continue. Okay, so like I was explaining, Now you can see that whatever you write inside between the opening tag and the closing tag is what HTML is going to publish to your users. The user will not see all these keywords. So I program here about Digitech Z. I'm not bothering about the case because I'm going to use the CSS to improve that. Now, once I go back to my front end, you see the write-up here, published already. All right. So if I have Jennifer here, we'll go for 5 minutes commercial break while she updates us on our upcoming program. If Jennifer is not here, then Ayo, you can do that as well. 5 minutes. You want to go and take water, but I will advise you stay tuned so that you can get all the information about this platform and our upcoming sections.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Prosper. Thanks for the class so far. I believe the class have been educating and we've learned a lot from the class. While we're on the break, please, I want to inform the house that there is more from where this is coming from. That is the truth. And I don't believe you get every information you need at once. And we have other classes apart from coding. The Digitech Zeal is an online platform that is into building capacity, building people in the tech world and in the digital world. As we all know, we are in the digital world now already. Like everything revolves around tech and the internet. So I want us to key into the program that we have. For this program, there's going to be a pro aspect of it, which will deem it fit. The price for this pro is 50,000. But for the benefit of those that will be paying today and those that are here with us now, we're going to be giving a 10% discount to. And I would urge you to take advantage of this. There you will see a coding class or a programming class, even graphic design, which I believe should be the cheapest when it comes to tech. You can't even find it at that rate. That's the honest truth. But because we have passion to build people in this tech world, and owing to like what I was telling someone, we might think the world is saturated, especially the tech world. It seems like everybody just wants to be into it, but we still lack expertise in this field. And this is really offering you an opportunity to be one of the pros in this programming world. So I urge you all to take advantage of it. It's a 10% discount for those that will be paying today and for those that are in this class this night with us. So please, let's do well. The account number is on the group. I'll still type it here. I'm going to place the account number on the chat box. Please take advantage of it.
All right, thank you very much, Jennifer. Just to add to what she have said so far, I would like to hear from those that are currently attending. How many of us actually have interest for programming? How many of us here actually want to be a problem solver?
Please, if you have interest, you can use the chat box to say hi. Indicate in the chat box so that we can pick it up from there. Thank you.
many of us here would like to become programmer, or how many of us here would like to learn programming? You want to unmute, you can unmute and say whatever you want to say. Okay, so Mr. Austin said he's interested. Thank you, Mr. Austin. Okay. Jennifer did not give details on when the master class is starting. I don't know. Maybe I did not listen to that aspect. Jennifer, do you have the information as regard to when the master class will be commencing? Okay, if you have the detail, I think you can still give it out quickly. So
Okay. Sorry about that, sir. I have the details of when the class will be commencing. Please, the
okay. Okay, maybe why she's trying to get the correct information. I don't know if that's the network. So outside the master class for programming, we have other master classes that are starting next week. We have data analysis that will be starting next week. Then the cost of that one is just 20,000. But the tools you'll be learning will be advanced Excel and advanced SQL, basic and advanced SQL. Jennifer, once you are back, let me know. Okay, so those are the tools that will be involved for that particular data analysis session masterclass. Jennifer, are you back? Have you gotten the correct details? Okay. There was a session that was held this morning, which is forex trading. I believe you will get all the details later on in the group that you are. Okay, so somebody say how much is masterclass for coding and programming? Yes, programming is the same thing as coding, sir. So which one of them are you referring to? You need to specify if you are following me. That was the reason why I gave that breakdown. I mentioned web programming, and then I mentioned application programming, and under each of them, so how I broke them down. So you need to be specific so that we know how to cost you. So if you have not completed yet, there is a number that is always posted alongside with our advert in that group, which is the number of the secretary of this platform. So you can private chat her to make more inquiry. That is also applicable to every other person. All right, so I think, okay, somebody say web coding. Web coding. Yes, that is the information we just gave to you. If you are going to register immediately, or probably I can still give the grace to tomorrow, you can get the front end development. That is the web design. That is the one that is going for 50,000. And the languages you'll be learning will be this HTML intensive, CSS intensive, JavaScript intensive. So which is simply mean you are going to learn how to develop website user interface, sand one for that matter, and then we'll also teach you how to host it, how to put it online. And if there's need for you to come for the back end, once you have graduated from the front end before we can consider the back end. You can't actually go for the back end without concluding the front end. That is the reason why we separated it. So I believe I've given you enough information about the web coding, sir. All right, so if we don't have any other, now I also want to make it clear, if you eventually you don't have the entire 50,000, somebody said, are you also teaching Forex? Yes, we have Forex, we have Forex experts. That was Coach Happiness who taught us in the morning. So she's very much available. We also have a master class that will be starting on 11th of this same month, which will be probably next week, Monday. That Forex class, we discounted it to 100,000. So according to her, if you are to contact her directly, that's supposed to cost you 200,000, but we advocated that anybody that is coming from this platform should be charged 100,000. We also give 50% discount. This discount is also applicable to that. So like I was about to say before that message came in, if you don't have the entire money today, you can pay certain amounts just to reserve that slot, and then you will also be entitled to that discount. So if you are paying today, like she said, 15% off from the 50,000 for the front end, then certification will be on request. We offer register certificates on this platform. So we need to get that. So if there's no any other message or any other information, then we can proceed. And please, I will encourage us to keep sending the link to friends, to loved ones. We still have a lot to talk about tonight. Remember that this program, this session is expected to last for 3 hours. We say from 7 to 10. So we still have a lot. Make sure that you don't miss out. So let me proceed quickly. Thank you for that. All right. So now I go back to my HTML file. So we have been able to publish about Digital Z. Now I want to say something about Digital Z, meaning that I want to describe this header. I want to describe this header. So how do I program that content? So let me quickly log in to Digital Z website and get some information about them. Let's say www.digitechz.com.ng. So because I want to say something about Digital Z. So ordinarily, the client will have given you this information. So as you can see here, this is Digital Z website. Welcome to Digital Z Hub, whatever. Now, if this is what I want to extract from here, I'll simply highlight it and then copy it and then go back to my webpage. Then I need another tag to publish that content. Like I told us, once you want to add a content, then you need to consult the right tag for doing that. And the tag we want to look at is called P tag, paragraph tag, because I want to explain about Digital Z. Then the moment I hit that, I have my opening tag and the closing tag. All I need to do within that opening and the closing tag is for me to paste the content I just extracted. So let's go back to the front end and see. So you can see that what I have published that information. Now I want to bring an image here, and that was the reason why we downloaded that image. So if I want to work with Digital Z picture, so in other words, I have to go back to that website and download one of our picture. download one of our picture. Let's say this, right click on it and select save image as, like we did before. Then I will target, and we are still in that image directory. So I will say DG IMG, and then I click on what save. Now let's go back to the website. We are developing our HTML and find a way of publishing that image. So I'll go to where the last used tag stop and press enter, and that will bring me here. Now, for you to add that image, you need another tag. Like I told us, these are the building blocks. So whenever you want to add a content, you consult a block, which is what? A tag. So the tag for publishing images in a website, it is called IMG. So I'll simply type IMG and hit what? Enter. Now, this tag is different from the ones I have activated. Why is it different? This tag came with what we call attributes. Now, what is attributes in HTML? Attributes provide additional information about the tag you are working with. The tag name is IMG. What is this SROC signifying? What is this alternative text or AUT signifying? What this one represents is the image you want to publish is not a key word. It is not built in the program, the IDE, just like the way we are calling H1, the way we call P, the way we call IMG. So the picture we want to use is not programmed in the IDE. It is an external object. And whenever you are introducing external objects into the IDE, you must reference the URL, the Uniform Resource Locator, the address. Where is that picture coming from? Whenever the user load or enter this website, where will the browser call the image from? That is what you are to write inside this. An attribute comes in pairs. The name side, that is the side before the equal sign, and the side after the equal sign, it is called the value section. Now, which means that this is just like a variable in programming, because variables are container that stores information within the program. Variables are container that are used to introduce external data into the program. So when you go inside this quotation, which means that you are bringing a text base, which is called in programming a string, all you need to do is to comment inside it by pressing the / on your keyboard. Now, that / is a comment in programming, which says the expression of that / is call out all the components inside example, call out all the directory, because inside one of this directory, I need an image. Now, from the output of this directory, I need this particular one because that is where the picture was stored. So you click on it. The moment you select it, you will now have access to different pictures that has been stored in that image folder. Now, the one I want to use is the one I named DGIMG. So once I click on it, ladies and gentlemen, we have added what? The picture. Now, so what is the function? Now, let's go to the front end and check. Let's go to the front end and check if we have actually added that picture. So let me go to my browser so you can see the picture right away. Now, what is the role of this alternative text? This alternative text is just like a backup. In a situation whereby maybe the person browser or the phone or the device the person is using to access this website could not read the JPEG as the image format or file extension, then what should that person see? I will program the person to see DG image. So in any situation where this image cannot be accessed, this is what the browser will display to the user. Now, in as much the browser is able to read this image, this will never be called upon. So now let's deliberately
make some mistake by deleting this to see whether the browser will be able to access this image. Now let's go back there. You can see that what the browser can no longer access that picture. And the browser have automatically called the alternative text. So let me bring it back, Control Z, and then go back to the browser. You can see that what now the browser could reach out to the image. So now that is how to use the image tag. But you can see that this picture is too big. So how do I resize it using another attribute, not using CSS? All I will need to do is to go inside that same tag and make sure that you come after the last use attribute, which is the alt and space, and then type width. The moment you type width, then it brings out what? This attribute. Now, this width allows you to resize the image. So I would like to resize the image to 450 ps. Then, by the time you go back to the browser, you can see that what? The image is now what? Smaller. Now, I want to also adjust the height of the image if I'm not okay with that. So I will also come after the last use attribute and type what? Height, and press enter. And then define the height. I just want a square image, so I will use the same size that I use for the width, the same unit. And then let's check the browser. So I have it. Now you can see that the image is disfigured. So which means that what? The proportion of your height and the width does not give us the quality expected. So these are some of the things as a professional developer you need to watch out for. Make sure that the image is not disfigured. So what I'm going to do is to leave it as the way it came, or I make the height 350 ps, and then let's check again and see. So good. So this is better because originally this is a landscape image. So we are trying to convert it to a portrait image. So that was the reason why the image was not giving us a proper viewport. So the next thing I want to do, so far so good, we have been able to create 3 different contents, such as the heading, the explanation of the heading, and the image backing upwards this particular writing. All right. So like I told us that we are actually targeting 3 different languages. I have touched part of the HTML. Now I want to quickly dive into the next language, which is the language for decorating or styling the content we have created so far. Now, the question we should be asking ourselves right now is, looking at the presentation of these 3 content, you can see that they are not properly arranged. So how do I make the user to have a better experience whenever they visit my website? You give them that good experience based on how you arrange, how you color your content. And that is why we need CSS. Please give me 1 minute.
Please, if you have any question, you can drop your question. Please, you can drop your questions. Let's make it interactive. Thank you.
All right. It's me, Jennifer. Please check your WhatsApp. All right, so let's proceed. Let's proceed. So like I said, I want to introduce us to CSS at this point. So when I started the introduction, I said, for you to develop user interface or web user interface, you need 3 languages. You need HTML for creating content. You need CSS for the presentation of those contents, how beautiful they could look like. And then you need JavaScript to add some functionality to those contents. So how do I implement CSS? So I want to start with styling about digital, and then I'll move to the content, and then finally the image. So like she asks, if you have any question, please, you can quickly use the message section. Then you can just unmute and interrupt me so that I can answer your question. Let's make it interactive. All right. Now, how do I implement my CSS? There are 3 ways you can actually attach your CSS to the HTML content you have developed. The first method is called inline CSS addition. The second method is called internal CSS addition. And the third method is called external CSS addition. So for this training section, I am going to use external, which is more professional. But if you enroll for the master class, I'm going to take you through all the methods. So I think I have a message there. Okay, I think it's a previous message. Now, what do we mean by CSS, external CSS? External CSS simply means that you are separating your HTML file from your CSS file. And the reason why this is recommended, there is what we call debugging. Every programmer will definitely at some point run into challenges. There will always be a time that you create an instruction to do something, and then you find out that the instruction is not giving you the desired result. So how do you find out? How do you locate where the error is? The process of looking for where the error is and fixing it, it is one of the skills of a programmer. And that skill, it is called debugging. Now, to reduce your debugging time, you are advised to use the external CSS method, where you have your CSS in a separate file, and then you have your HTML in a separate file. All right, so how do I create my CSS file? Because we already have our HTML file. All I need to do is to add my CSS file. That was the reason why we created this folder. The reason why I created this folder is because my intention is to implement external CSS. So I will go inside this folder by just clicking on the icon and then navigate to that file icon and then type index.css. So which means that the code, which means that the styling code that will be written in this file, we are targeting this HTML content. So the heading tag or the heading content we have created here, the image we have added here, and the paragraph we have added here are the one we'll be talking to directly from this file. That is the reason why I align the name. So once I have entered my file name and the extension, I will click outside. But once you click outside, then you have a new file. you don't need to call any default file structure when working with CSS. You only do that when you are working with HTML. So now the next thing I'm going to do, how do I make my code here to be visible? How do I make my code here to be visible? Please, somebody audio is disturbing at the background. If you are not, please kindly mute so that we can have smooth conversation. Jennifer, if you are not speaking, please, you can also mute. I guess the audio background is for good. Thank you very much. All right. Now, the next thing I want to do is how I can establish connection between my CSS file and the HTML file I am targeting. So to do that, you go back to your HTML file and go inside the head tag and then type link and hit enter. So this link will provide you an attribute called href, which means hyperreference. This attribute allows you to select the URL, the address where that CSS file is. So like I did the other time when I was calling my image, right inside that attribute value section, I will tap my / on my keyboard, and then it automatically fetch out all the directory in my root folder. And then I will go to the CSS folder, and then I can find the CSS file we just created. So now I have connected, which means that whatever I am coding here, once I select the HTML elements I want to attach that script to, it will locate it and modify it. So for example, let's go back to our front end. I want to start by giving the whole of this content red color. And after that, I'll make all the letters capital letter, which is uppercase. And then after that, increase the font size and centralize it, move it to the center of the page. So these are the 4 or 3 things I want to achieve with CSS, because HTML cannot do those things for you. The work of the HTML is just to give you the content, which it has done. So it's not left for CSS to modify them to give us a better presentation. So I will simply switch back to my CSS. Now, the next question is for me to select the HTML element. Which of the HTML element do I want to attach the color to? Now, I'll go back to my HTML and identify the selector. What is the selector in this case? Selector is the way of referencing the HTML element you want to speak to from CSS. Now, the selector here is what? H1. So I will go to my CSS and type H1, which means that what the element I'm about to style is H1. All the content that I created through that element, they are the one I am talking to. Now, just like the way I explained HTML syntax, CSS also have its own syntax. The syntax of CSS is the selector and then the calling bracket. The calling bracket. So whatever you write inside this calling bracket is called, or let's say this calling bracket, we can interpret it to be CSS declaration block, which means that what? A kind of container where you are wrapping all your CSS properties and their values. So each time I want to transform my content, then I need to have an idea of which CSS property. Now get it right. When we were creating content, we sorted out the right tag. Now that you want to style, then you sort out the property. So you can see the terminologies have changed. In HTML, I was using the language, tag, and attribute. Now in CSS, I'll be using property and value, property and value. Now, if I go back to my coding environment, I need color. So I will not look for CSS property for coloring text, which is called color. Once you type color, because all these properties are already built inside the IDE library, I will just click, and then just like the way we have the equals to separating the HTML tag name and the HTML attribute name and the value. That is how we have the column, this column here, separating the CSS property from the value you are about to give. The value is red. I'll simply type what? Red. Now, let's go to the front end and check. You see that what? I have transformed the initial black text to what? Red text. So you can see that there is communication between my CSS and my HTML. Now, in case you want to know, sir, let's go back to the HTML and delete this, because this was the place where we established that connection. Now let's go back. You see that what is no longer seeing your CSS file. So which means that what our connection was well established. So let's go back to the front end and check. So we have the information back. So don't forget, there are 3 challenges that I want to provide solution for with CSS. The first challenge was to change the text color from black to red, which we have already achieved. The second challenge is to change the case from lowercase to uppercase. So how do I achieve that? It's very simple. To achieve that is for you to go back to your CSS, and now this semicolon is what defines the end of the previous CSS. So I'll make sure that I press enter immediately after it. And then I will then think of which CSS property can actually transform the text case. So the name of the CSS property is called text transform. Text transform. Then what is the value? The value is what? Uppercase. Now let's check our front end. So you can see that I have also modified the case. Now, I discovered that the size is too big because we need to consider the mobile view. If I want to check the mobile view while I'm developing, I will simply right-click on the page and select Inspect, and then switch to this option that says what? Toggle devices. Once I click here, this is how my website will display on my mobile phone. If I want to check how it's going to display on any of these devices, like what? iPhone Pro 12 or 12 Pro, this is how it's going to display. So sometime when you are developing, you need to develop to mobile or small devices standard, because statistics have shown that 95% of website users uses mobile phone. So therefore, you shouldn't be comfortable with the way it's showing on a laptop view like this. You might be deceived. At the end of hosting, you discover that your website is not responsive. That is the responsiveness we're talking about. So when you register for the master class, there is a library, JavaScript library, which is called Bootstrap, which will also expose you to, which is used for making responsive website. Okay, now I want to reduce the size. Going back to my CSS file, I'll then look for another CSS property that can help me to solve that problem. And the name of that CSS property is called font size. Then you choose your font size. So all these ones, they are inbuilt sizes. But at times when you choose them, you don't actually know the actual size you are using. So for example, now let me try larger and go and check the front end. So you can see larger, shrink it a little, and maybe okay with this. But in a situation where I am not okay with this, then I have the privilege of imputing my own size. Now, the standard viewing size for writing, particularly on mobile phone, is 18 ps. So let's check the appearance of this. Good, this is good. Now, remember we have solved 3 different challenges. Number 1, we have transformed the case from lowercase to uppercase. We have also transformed the color from black to red, and then we have also changed the size. So the next thing I want to do is to move this text to align it to the center of my page. So how do I do that? I go back to my CSS. I am still talking to just one element, H1. That is why all the code I am writing, they are inside what? The H1 declaration block. So the property to align is called text align. Text align, then I will choose center. Then let's go back to the front end and check. So we have been able to align the text to the center of the page. So the next thing I want to do is to space the characters. I want some space between A and B and other characters, because since I have just this text on the whole of that paragraph, then let me stretch them a little. So how do I achieve that? I go back to my CSS and then type letter spacing. So from letter spacing, I will specify my letter spacing to be 10 ps, for example, and then check the front end. So you can see I have gotten some space. Now, the next thing I want to do, I want to slant, that's called italic. For what we are doing right now, we are trying to give every user that visits this website good experience, which is called the UI UX that you are hearing. Who are the UI and the UI designer? So a web developer that creates the front end pages is a UI and UX designer. So the UI means what? User interface, while the UX means what? User experience. So all this styling that I am doing, I am trying to give user good experience, so that, because website is one of the major digital marketing tool. So I want a situation whereby when a user gets to this website and there are products that I am advertising, I want them to be enticed. I want them to be, happy, so that they can keep visiting this website as I continue to provide more updates. So I want to slant all these letters. How to do that? I will consult another CSS property. And the CSS property to slant those entries is called font style. And then I'll select what? Italic. So if I go back to my front end, you can see that what? I have slanted the text. So I am okay with this. Now I want to do something quickly. I want a situation whereby whenever the user hovers on this text should change its color and provide some effects. So whenever they hovers on it, for example, the current text color, which is red, should change to green or maybe blue. So that is called hover effect. So what I'm going to do, I cannot declare that within this selector. So I have to step out. So I will simply press the control button on my keyboard and the / to create a comment, just like I did in my HTML. What is comment in programming? Comment is just for code explanation. To who? To you and the third party. Remember, remote job believe in division of labor. After learning all this, when a company hires you, they are going to permanent you on one of these languages. You are not going to write or code all the languages. Your duty might be writing just the HTML and pass the code to a CSS expert. That person will now add his own word style and pass the code to JavaScript word expert. So now, the reason why I'm introducing comment now, so that by the time the code is given to someone else, the person does not need to consult me to know what those codes were written for. So my comment is already explaining. So what I'm about to do now is called what? Adding hover effect. So H1 elements. So the syntax for adding hover effect to that HTML, to that H1, because what we have right now is the actual appearance, what the user will see as soon as they log into the page without triggering any action. But what we are about to create now will only appear when they trigger an action. And the action is when they touch that text on that page. So right now, the syntax will be H1, and then I will insert my column, and then I will type hover, and then before declaring my block, and then I will make sure that my hover effect is not the same property, like the actual appearance color is red. So I will call the color again, and then pass in another color. And then the current font size is 18. So I will say by the time they hover, the font size should be 25 PS. So let's go and test it now and see. So let's go back here. So let me try touching this text. Can you see it now? So once I leave that text, then it goes back to the actual site. Once I select it, go back to the hover effect. Now, by the time you come in for the master class, I can assure you, we will now learn what we call CSS3, CSS animation, where we can create some effects, maybe like you see a text rotating, or you see a text bouncing. All those ones, they are under CSS3, which is under advanced CSS. So I have done enough styling on this element. So I want to move to the next content. We have p tag and we have image. So, but before that, I would like to leave the stage for the next 5 minutes for Ms. Jennifer. And then if you have any question within this period, you can ask. Let me get the response from you to know if you are following. Use the comment section. Jennifer, are you here? Ayo, you can take over. If Jennifer is not here, please.
All right, thank you everyone for being on this teaching till now. Really appreciate your efforts. Thank you everyone. So if you have questions, you can ask. Though someone has asked the question here, Mr. Austin was asking how much is the masterclass for coding, and he was asking, is it both front and back end coding? Then he asked, what is the duration? So please ask more of your question so that our teacher can attend to them.
Let me hear directly from the Austin. Austin, if you are here, can you unmute and kindly speak to me quickly? Okay, I just want to confirm if Austin is still here with us. Because I may be answering that question and it's not here. Okay, I think somebody have posted the details there. The duration is 7 weeks, and the language you are going to learn will be HTML, CSS, JavaScript, plus Bootstrap library, like I said, which is for making responsive website. And then you can see that it's limited
to front end. This is not back end. Back end will be learning PHP, MySQL, and hosting. So hosting is not here, so there's no point of the detail has been provided. So let me hear from another person. So I'm going to be calling names now since some of us do not want to talk. So I'll call their name one by one. Let me get a feedback from them, how they are following the training so far.
All right. Let's start with is he Mr. or Mrs. Shadow? Emax. Emax. Yeah.
My question is,
Okay.
hold on. My question is, what site is he using to code?
So,
Okay. If I may get your question right, you say what sites I am using
Yeah.
code. We are actually programming a site. We are not using a site. We are building website. But I think what you mean is which language or which IDE. I don't know if I get you right, sir. IMAS, I'm responding to your question, please. Do you mean which language or which application I'm using to code?
Yes, which application? Like the app.
Okay, app. We are using Visual Studio Code.
Okay, sir.
Okay, I believe you joined late because I've explained all that. Any other? Oh yeah, Miracle, continue.
Mr. Edozie, good evening, sir. Mr. Edozie, are you there?
All right, I'm here. Good evening.
Thank you for joining us today. You're welcome.
Thank you. I'm actually following the class though. No much questions for now. Just following the class. Maybe by the end of the class, I would have made up my mind on whether to join the master class or something.
Thank you very much.
It's all right.
So, who else? Wait. So,
all right. Okay, please, once you are ready, let me know. I think as Austin is not here, we can still ask if he's back.
okay. Mr. Austin, are you back? Can you hear us now? Mr. Austin. I don't think he's back. Or maybe his network is bad. Whichever one. Can still wait for him maybe.
All right. Let's proceed. Thank you very much. Okay, so the next we want to do right now, like I said, we want to style other elements. Let's quickly look at how do we improve this content, which was generated with p-tag. Now I need to go back to my HTML and identify the selector. The element name that created that content, you need to identify it, which is p-tag. Now you go back to your CSS and step out from the last used selector and then call what? P, and then also open your CSS declaration block. Then after that, you call other property. For example, we want to improve the size. So I'll type what? Font size. So from font size, I'll look for reasonable font size. Let me use 18 PS. Let's check the front end now and see. Okay, no much different. Okay, no much different from the default size. So let's increase it to like 25. That might be too much for mobile view, but let's just give it 25.
Sorry. Okay. All right. So this is more visible for laptop view. Now I need to also change the color. I think I'm okay with the color. So let's quickly go to the image styling. So I will need two different images. So I'm going to add additional image. Then I have to go back to my HTML file. And then remember I said to add image, you type img, and then specify the image URL, then target where the image is within your project. Then let's pick this one that we downloaded the other time from the internet. So let's check. Now we have the two pictures. This one does not have a background, or the background is white background. So I would like to style it so that I can see the frame. Now, to style these two pictures separately, I need to find a way of differentiating them. And that is where what we call selecting elements by class comes in. By class, that is what? A unique method of referencing a particular element. So the first thing I'm going to do is to go back to my HTML and assign my class name. So I'll start by classing the first image. I will just add the class attributes and then give it a name. Let's say img1. Then I go inside the next image, then class. So the essence is for me to be able to speak to them differently. Because if I use img, both of them will be affected. So I will say this one is img2. Now from my CSS, I now have a unique method of selecting those images. So what I will simply do, whenever you are referencing a class element, you start by entering a period, which means what? Dots. And then you type img, followed by the name of that class, which is img1. Then before you open the CSS declaration block, and then you can now specify your CSS property. So what are the properties? I just want to redefine the image width and also add some rounded corner or curve corner. I want to just curve the edges of this particular selected image. So let me start. We have already widthed it. So let me just add a border line just to make that image to step out or to stand out from other elements around it. So I will say border. This is the CSS property, ordinary border. Now, this border property can receive three values at the same time. The first value is the thickness of that border line. Then the second value is the type of line. So let me choose solid. And then the third value is the color. Remember, we are using red. Let's blend our color. Now let's check the front end now. You can see that I have frame, I've added what? Borderline color. So if I want to increase the thickness of this image border, then all I need to do is to edit the tool where I specify the initial thickness. Let's assume to 10. And then I click. So you can see that what I have a thicker what frame. Now the next thing, I want this corner to curve. I want it to curve, or I even want it to be a circular image, pure cycle. So what I'm going to do, I will use another property, which is called border radius. So from here, I will specify the radius to be 50%, which means what? Half of the current width. So once we go back to the front end, you see the image in that form. So the next thing I want to do, I want to talk to this particular one. So what I'm going to do is to call it selector also dot img2, like we named it, and then open my my block, and then I can just call, I can copy and paste this particular property and edit it if that may be the case. I can just paste it, and then let's check now. We should have it there. So you can see that the image is very small. So let's quickly apply some width to it. Let's say width. Let's align the width with the previous one, which is 450 ps. And then the height is also align it with the previous one, which is 350 ps. So if you check now, see that what both of them have the same width. So the next thing I want to do, which is going to be the last thing before we go to the interactive section, is for us to centralize these images. I want them to be at the center of this page. So to achieve that, all I'm going to do is to wrap these two images in a container, or I will simply margin this one from the left-hand side. Because once you shift this one from the left-hand side, it's going to shift this one as well. So you will just be gauging the space. So now that we have a unique way of talking to them, so this is the one I am going to select, and then margin is from the left-hand side. So let's go back to our CSS, and then while we are inside that very one, we have already selected this. So I will just update that particular property. Margin left, and then I'll push it, for example, let's just say 20%. 20%. So let's just weigh the amount of space that is going to generate. So you can see that we have over pushed it. So we need to reduce it. So let's consider 10%. Let's consider 10%. All right. Now we want to shift them down a little bit. We want them to be distanced from this test. So we margin top, we push them from the top. So that is applicable to where I spoke to all of them. So I don't think good. Okay, we have not used any of such. So what I'm going to do, I will use the general selection, which is what IMG, because both of them should be affected with what I want to do right now. So I will say what? Margin top, move the two images down by, let's say, 20 ps, and then by the time you come back here, you see that what I have shifted what the two images down. Now let's check our responsiveness. Let's check how it's going to display on mobile view, like I've explained before. Phone. So you can see that on this particular device, the view is very poor. So let's change it from iPhone 12 Pro to this. So this view is better. So you can see the reason why Bootstrap is needed, so that we can make it responsive. You can see that this is not responsive because part of the web of the content are not visible if you are using a mobile device to view this. But on laptop view, everything is okay. So the last thing before we end the session, because of time, we are going to what? Define the entire, remember we downloaded a background which we call the tech background, TechBG. I want to use that background to format the entire page because I don't want this white. I want a background that will be communicating an idea, probably relating to the services of this particular organization. Now, how do I color? How do I format or style the entire browser page with an image? All you need to do is to select body. In HTML document, there can only be what? One body. You can't repeat body. So what I'm going to do is to select that body. There's no need of me classing it because we don't have more than one. So I will just say what? Body, and then open my declaration block. Now I will use a CSS property which is called a background image. Then because the image I am bringing is an external image, I will type URL just to help me to reference the location where the image is. Remember when we started, we have already stored that background in our image folder. So what I will do is to simply call this URL and slash inside it, and then we go inside your image folder, then I think we saved it with this. So I'll click. Now let's go to the front end and check the impact. So you see that we have the entire page formatted with that background. But there's a challenge before we leave. Let's quickly sort out that challenge. So what is the challenge? You can see that the background is repeated as a result of not having enough width to fill the expected page width. So if I want to stop that repetition, then I have to introduce another property, which is called background repeats. Background repeat, then I will say what? No repeat. If you go back to the front end, you will notice that you have a smaller one, which is no longer covering the entire page.
So how do I stretch it to cover the entire page? So all I need to do is to go back to my CSS and update with a property called background size. Background size, I will say what? Cover. So by the time you go back to your front end, and then you have just that single background covering the entire page. Now, there is now need for us to format our text color because the background is now distracting the text color. So remember, there was a place where we selected that text. So we'll quickly go there and update the color from the default color, which is black, to something like white. So something like this can actually what? Transform it. So we have our content more visible. So I think based on the number we have left here, we have to stop here. So Mr. Austin, if you have any question, you ask, so there's no need of us proceeding. Coordinators.
Sorry, sir. Is Mr. Austin, are you there? Mr. Austin, I don't know if it is network. Even the network to logged me out. I had to log in back. Mr. Austin, please, can you hear me? I guess he's not here. Mr. Austin.
All right, no problem.
I don't know, maybe it's